What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Inside Inter Miami. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, joined as always by Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer, who is live from Chase Stadium as we record this show today. A little different. That's still the virtual background behind her, ladies and gentlemen. But if you
But in
use
front
your
of me is the
imagination,
actual stadium.
she's
Yes,
staring at
we
the
have to worry
grandstand.
about lighting. So the lighting is better if I'm facing the stadium, but we'll
There you
pretend.
go. We'll pretend. And one thing that Inter Miami can only do about winning the last couple games is pretend they did, because they have not. They finally took their first L of the season against LAFC in the first match of their series with LAFC in the quarterfinals of the Concacaf Champions Cup. We'll take a look at what has to change if they're to survive and advance in that tournament. Also, a disappointing draw 1-1 this past Sunday, which I got a chance to cover alongside Michelle, and we'll talk about has played in both games, but the team has not been able to come out on top, and we'll address some of these Kevin De Bruyne rumors that are going around now. The Belgian superstar is being linked to it potentially coming to Inter Miami in the future. Michelle has some updates on Miami Freedom Park's ticket sales, season tickets for the 2026 season, and so forth, as that stadium starts to take shape out there by the Miami airport. But let's start with Messi's return, Michelle. He's back, but they can't seem to get in the win column the last couple of games. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean he's back, and everyone was very excited that he's returned to the starting lineup, which is great. And obviously the team is better with him than without him. But the results did not show that in the last two games. They were rolling along. Everybody was in a good mood. They were winning all their games. And then all of a sudden, they run up against LAFC on the road. And we knew that this was going to be a hard game. I mean, like we mentioned, all the stars came out. There were all kinds of celebrities there watching the match. It was, high energy in the stadium. It was a close match. There was of course controversy with a foul that against Maxi Falcon that everyone on the Inter Miami side, especially Javier Mascherano, felt that should have been a red card, and it was a yellow. He kind of hit him in the face, whether it was inadvertent or not. He did hit him in the face, so it was hands to the face, and he got a yellow instead of a red. And that made a big difference because it turned out that same player is the guy who scored the goal, the only goal in
Right.
the game, and they ended up winning 1-0 on a goal by a guy that a lot of people felt should have been thrown
Should
out
have
of
been
that
out of the
game.
game. Yep.
But they can't rely on that. I mean, the bottom line is Miami did not score any goals, and so it's difficult to win when you have zero on your side of the score sheet. So, but it was a controversial. Mascherano said that was a red here in China and on the moon. He was very upset with that non-call, or yellow versus red call. So, now, well, we'll go back to the Toronto game, but now by losing that game 1-0, they are in a deep hole going into the game Wednesday night, which is the elimination game. LAFC leads 1-0, the two-game aggregate series, which means that LAFC will advance with a win, with a tie, and even with a one-goal loss. So Miami has to not only win the game, but they have to score goals. They have to score more than one. And if they score one, if the game ends 1-0, which is the same score it was in LA, then it goes into a extra time. It
Right.
goes into extra time and then PKs, and then the winner advances to the semifinal. But
Which is
LA
such
has
a
a huge
yeah.
advantage.
I was going to say such a tricky thing, because then I think if it specifically if Miami wins 1-0, it goes to extra time. But if Miami, tell me if I'm wrong, but if Miami wins 2-1, they're out because of the road goal that LAFC would conceivably have, having scored
Right.
at
Then Miami would
Miami.
have to score three.
It's
Miami would
such
have to
a
win
the
three to
aggregate
one.
is so crazy how that can work. Like you
It
literally
is
win the
because the
game, but
tie,
depending on the score, it decides your outcome.
yeah, and the tiebreaker is away goals,
Right.
which is, that's the thing, is that if LA scores in Miami
Right.
and
Then they have
Miami
to beat
did
them by
not
two.
score at all in LA, Yes, yes. Then they have to win by 2 because the tiebreaker is away goals. And if LA scores in Miami, that's away goal for them. Miami
Right.
scores 0 away. So
Right.
Miami's in a very precarious
Oh
position.
yeah.
LA did a great job, by the way, of clogging up the middle and keeping the ball from the district, from basically from Messi's waiters. Messi's waiters could not get the ball to deliver the ball to him. So, by smothering all the people who typically feed Messi the ball, Messi was not able to get the ball as much as he wanted, and
Right.
they really frustrated the Miami attack in that way. And Toronto must have watched the video because they did some of the same, but LA did a very, very good job of defending and clogging up the middle and making things difficult so that Miami couldn't get the passing lanes and the fluidity that they had in the run up to that game.
Right. And we're talking about this team right now being in maybe like a mini, I want to call it a mini funk, but they've lost, they haven't been able to get a victory in 2 important matchups. But think about what happened. I mean, like you said, the LAFC game, a guy that probably should have been red carded out of the game ends up coming back and scoring. And then in the Toronto game, ends up being a 1-1 draw. But Miami ends up having not 1, but 2 goals disallowed for different reasons. One on an offside and one because after further review, they deemed that Lionel Messi had fouled one of the Toronto defenders inside the box before he scored. So very easily could have been very easily could have been a victory.
It could have been a 3-1, a 2-1. It ends up 1-1, 2 goals disallowed. Everyone was so excited to see those goals. The Messi one in particular was a beautiful goal.
Right.
But he did step on the defender's foot, before he took the shot. So they disallowed that one, and then the other one was a Luis Suarez Pistolero goal, which was also disallowed. He's been struggling a bit lately. Suarez was kind of on a roll, and he's been held scoreless. So they're struggling, and it was a big surprise, to be honest, that all of the big 4 started, and not only started, but they played. All of them played 90 minutes except Suarez. Messi, I mean, everyone sort of assumed, including me, that they were going to rotate and they did rotate, but not the people we thought. The thinking was they're going to rest these stars, the 4 big stars, Messi, Busquets, Alba, and Suarez. They'll rest them, or maybe they'll play, but they'll only play limited minutes because they have this big game coming up on Wednesday. So A, there was a risk of injury, and B, there's risk of them getting tired. So the assumption was that they would be rested. Well, Javier Mascherano threw all that out the window. And the next thing you know, they're not only on the roster, they started. Messi started, Busquets, Alba, Suarez, they all started. And 3 of the 4 played 90 minutes. Meanwhile, LA, Steve Cherundolo, their coach, took a very different approach. Their game against Houston on Saturday, they rested 8 of the 11. Only 3 of their regular starters started that game. 8 people rested. They only started the keeper, Bouanga, and 1 other player. Everyone else who played against Miami rested in the game against Houston. Now they lost that game 1-0. Miami tied this game 1-1 against a winless Toronto team that is better than its record, but still it's not won a game. And LA ended up losing to a previously winless Houston team. So they were in similar situations, both teams playing against winless teams. Cherundolo in LA chose to sit 8 players, and Javier Mascherano chose to start his key starters against Toronto. And it will be interesting. It will be interesting on Wednesday night to see if the game goes long. Do the Miami players get tired? If it does end in a tie and they end up having to play extra time, will Miami have the legs, having played on Sunday? The other thing is that LA played Saturday and Miami played Sunday night. So LA had one more day of rest. On top of one more day of rest, they rested 8 starters. So they're going to be fresh. And I'll just say this last point on this is that Mascherano, I guess his approach was he wanted them to be sharp sharp versus fresh. He said, we're going to hear from him in a minute, but not on this particular topic. I had asked him, why did he start? What was his thinking of starting those four? He said, these are guys who their entire career have played every 3 days. This is not unusual for them. This is normal for them. Yes, they're older in age now, but they are used to playing every 3 days. This is not anything unusual. And he likes the players to be sharp. And I guess maybe felt that a whole week without playing was too much. Cherundolo took a different approach. So it's going to be a very, very interesting situation on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, one thing to just to clarify, yeah, it's more the age thing than the experience thing. Obviously, this is something these guys have done playing in Europe and playing all over the world, have done this before over their careers. But, more to unpack than expected with this Toronto game. I mean, you're going in facing a team that was tied for dead last in the Eastern Conference. And, they come out with that, they come out first and you have the first goal disallowed. Okay, fine. They bounce back. Messi scores, place goes nuts. Okay, they're in cruise control. Then that foul happens, the review, all of a sudden that's gone. Then comes the gut punch because Toronto scores, and all of a sudden you're in a dogfight, 1-0. Messi has the quick answer to make it 1-1. Again, he's like the eraser, like, oh, don't worry, everything's fine. And then
don't worry, Messi to the rescue, Messi to the rescue.
Right.
Yes.
But then the rest of the match, chance after chance, nothing able to happen. The one plus is that Drake Callender is back, and that this was his first start, just like the others. He played all 90 minutes. Struggled maybe a little bit in the beginning. The Toronto had a couple shots that hit the post, and then he obviously gave up the one goal there early on. But it looks like he sort of settled in after that, the rest of the second half, and was able to play. And now that begs the question: what happens next? Does he? I wrote about it this week. It'll feature on him and his return from the adductor injury. Does Inter Miami roll from now on with Oscar Ustadi, who was, for the most part, really strong in goal, or do they kind of go back and forth with him and Drake? The fact is they have two capable goaltenders, and Drake just, I think, is ready for whatever comes, and this is what he had to say after the draw with Toronto.
I wouldn't say I would be catching up. I mean, I'm ready to go. I have a lot of experience. I'm going into my prime. I feel ready to go, and I just want to be available for the team. And the most important thing is that we win games. It's important to have competition on the team. We have a great GK group. We have a great team, and we have a lot of weapons. So, yeah, it's about to get the first minutes of the year under the belt tonight and go on from there. Yeah, I was dealing with right adductor injury that kind of migrated up to the groin area, and as a goalkeeper, I want to be at my best, and I was really having trouble with the long kicking, the long balls. Dabbing felt good, catching felt good, movements felt good, but once I got to the kicking, it was really still bothering me. And it took me a while to kind of work through that. I was trying to do as much as I could, kind of bit by bit. You probably saw me in training in end of February into March. It's just like, how do I prepare, get the reps, while still manage injury and get close to 100%. It's a long year, so it's just kind of like figuring out what was the best way to kind of get to where I am now. And I was training a little bit, recover, heal, see how it feels, and ultimately it's feeling really good, and I'm just going to keep it that way.
I mean, I don't know for a fact, obviously, but it just seems to us like maybe this was, get Drake in there, get him a full 90, get him going again. And now do they turn back to Ustadi, who's also healthy? It's the first time both have been healthy, for like really healthy all season. Do they go back to him now against LA?
Yeah, Javier Mascherano has some really, the past two games, really very difficult situation. This is where the coaching, decisions start to be judged by the fans. So far he was in a honeymoon period. The team had won all of their games. It seemed like everything he was doing was right. There was no reason to question anything. Now there's going to be the question, if they lose and get eliminated, should they have rested all the starters? That is on his shoulders now, that decision. And then now the decision of who to start at goalkeeper. Do you start Drake Callender, who was a co-captain of the team and started for 3 years and, and it was the established guy, but only has one game out of this whole year. I mean, they played 11 games, whatever
one
he
full
in
game, right?
preseason. He only has one game. And to me, this was kind of his, brush off the rust game. But do you want a player who just brushed off the rust to come into this big elimination game? He has come up big in elimination games. In Leagues Cup, he was the star of the Leagues Cup in 2023. That was a long time ago. This is a new thing. And by the way, Ustari has played in this tournament before with Pachuca, I believe, in Mexico. So he's very familiar with this tournament. And if they end up having to play Mexican teams in the next rounds, were they to advance, he is familiar with the Mexican teams and the Mexican league players. So I don't know. I mean, it's a tough decision. I know that Drake says he's ready and he wants to go. And Ustari also, like you said, if they're both healthy, what do you do? Do you use Ustari for this game and then Drake for the Sunday league game at Chicago? Do you keep Drake for the league games right now and use Ustari for the Champions Cup games? But there will be no more Champions
There may not
Cup
be
games.
any more, right?
There may
Right.
not be any more Champions Cup games because I have a little chart here that I found online, which is all the scenarios. Who will advance? Basically, the only scenarios where Miami can advance, I will say it carefully, so write this down for all of you at home. The only ways that Miami advances is if they win 2-0, 3-0, 4-0, or 3-1. Also, they would advance at 3-1, or they would advance at, like 4-2. But they have to score a lot of goals and not allow goals. And it's going to be difficult. And so the goalkeeper in this game, it's always critical who the goalkeeper is. But in this game, keeping a clean sheet is so
Paramount.
vital in this game. And again, Mascherano, if he chooses Drake and they end up losing, there will be people who will criticize and say, oh, he should have started Ustari. Right. And if he starts Ustari and they lose, there will be people who say he should have picked Drake. And this is where we're going to see the true temperament of the coach, because he is going to start being judged now by these decisions over this past week.
Right. Just my opinion. But before I get to that, I think there's a simple way for everyone that might get confused with all these scores. There's still the scenario of 1-0, send it to overtime,
extra time,
and get that goal or win it in PKs.
They can win in
whatever.
extra time.
Right.
Yes.
There's that one. The other one, win by 2. Period. Doesn't matter if it's 3-1, 4-2, 5-3. Win by 2. But you're right, because basically the bottom line, I think the easiest way for them is do not let LA score in any scenario. Yeah. Do not let LA score.
The best way is 1-0, 2-0, but 0 to keep a clean sheet.
Bingo. And
if they keep a clean sheet, at the worst scenario, they're going to go to extra time. That's the worst scenario. Best scenario, they win in regulation. But the key is do not allow goals. Play great defense. Do not allow goals. And the keeper is going to be so critical in this game.
That's where I was going with that. Right. Exactly.
And
to illustrate, to back up your point about how critical this goalkeeping decision is, and not just the goalkeeping, but the defense in front of them too, which so far this season, for the most part, has been much better. Though that area of this team has to be on point.
Yeah. Let's see what Javier Mascherano had to say going into this very critical, the most critical game that he has faced so far as a coach here.
No hay margen de error. Entrar desde el primer minuto a dar lo mejor, jugar con el corazón en la mano, pero con la mente fría. Al fútbol se juega con el corazón caliente y con la mente fría. No hay otra manera. O por lo menos es la única manera que entiendo yo de jugar este deporte y es lo que trato de transmitirle. Más en partidos tan importantes. Tenemos 90 minutos para marcar un gol que nos va a dar la igualdad de la serie, pero no podemos tomar gol. Entonces tenemos que ser agresivos, tenemos que estar concentrados, sabiendo de que obviamente el rival, cuando le das alguna oportunidad o ve alguna ventanita de luz, la va a aprovechar. Bueno, el margen de error es 0.
Ignacio.
¿Qué tal, Javier? ¿Cómo estás? Bueno, ya un poco has dejado claro que el partido del miércoles es el partido más importante hasta ahora. Te quiero preguntar un poco varias cosas sobre eso. Por un lado, ¿cómo condiciona que no esté...?
No, lo que condiciona, antes que nada, que Los Ángeles tenga 24 horas más de descanso. Eso sí condiciona. Y nadie me lo ha preguntado. Son 24 horas, ¿eh?
Sí, jugaron ayer.
Son 24 horas.
Buena
En
punta.
una competición, que los dos estamos haciendo la misma competición, me resulta raro. Porque ellos tienen 24 horas más de descanso que nosotros.
Sí, misma liga, además.
Por eso mismo. Es raro.
Wow, he is
Okay,
not
so-
he is not happy about that extra day LA got. But go ahead. Yeah.
He's definitely not happy. The one thing you could say if you're LA is that they had to travel to Houston for their game, and then they have to travel here for this game. So Miami did not travel. Miami, since last Wednesday's game against LA,
It's been
they
home.
came home. They got back
Right.
at 9 a.m. Thursday. They have been home sleeping in their beds since Thursday, whereas LAFC finished that game late Wednesday night, and then they had to go to Houston for their game on Saturday and go back from Houston, and then they're flying across the country to Miami. So I will say that there is that element that LA has had more travel, more rest time, yes, of 24 hours, but also more travel than Miami had. Javier Mascherano, for those who don't speak Spanish, he said there is no margin for error, zero margin for error in this game. He also said that they have to play with their heart in their hand and with a cool mind. He said, the only way that I know how to play is with a hot heart and a cold mind. And
I
that's
love
what he's
that. I
feeling
love
his
that.
play.
I'm going to frame that. I love that.
Yes, a hot heart and a cool mind.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that the next time I play pickleball.
I'm going to use that every time I'm on deadline.
There you go.
So,
No, for real.
so he said, listen, there's no margin for error. They have to play with a lot of heart, but with a cool mind, play smart. By the way, speaking of playing smart, they will be missing perhaps the smartest player on the field, the assistant coach on the field, Sergio
Yes.
Busquets, will not be playing in this game because of accumulation of yellow cards. A little bit too many arguments. He is accumulation of yellow cards. He will not be available. And let me tell you, well, anyone who watches this team knows, losing Boosie is a big loss. He sometimes doesn't get talked about as much as some of the others, but that is the guy directing traffic. That is the guy who sees things that no one else sees. He is like an assistant coach on the field. He assists the other players,
Just the
tells them
quarterback.
where
Yep.
to be, redirects them if they're in the wrong place. He will not be there. He is like a mentor, like a coach out there on the field. He will not be there. So that position is now going to probably be a Yannick Bright, Fede Redondo partnership trying to replicate what Busquets does. And Yannick Bright, as you know, I'm a big Yannick Bright fan. He has been playing unbelievable. He is one who did rest. They did rest him against Toronto. He came in toward the end of the game and made two fantastic plays to break up two Toronto attacks that were looking very dangerous. And Yannick Bright came in and saved the day both times. So they did rest him for most of the game, but they will not have Busquets for this game. And, they're going to have to play cool mind, hot heart, without Busquets, and playing, starting the game with a 1-0 deficit. It's going to be a difficult game. I will say that Miami did get a lot of shots off against Toronto. They just were not clinical and they didn't finish. I looked up the numbers.
Right.
They had 9 shots on goal compared to 3 for Toronto. So Miami had 9 shots on goal to 3 for Toronto, and they had 23 shots overall. 23 shots compared to 12, 9 shots on goal compared to 3, and 10 corner kicks compared to 3 for Toronto. So in other words,
2 goals disallowed.
and they and 2 goals disallowed and dominated possession by 70% to 30 practically for most of the game. So Miami's offense did create chances and did dominate possession. They just were not able to finish. They are going to have to finish against LA. They're going to have to finish. And most importantly, like we said, the clean sheet is going to be critical. And that it's a really big game for this early in the season for this team.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, when we look back on it, maybe down the road they'll look back. Maybe this Toronto game will be an anomaly just because it, again, with those disallowed goals, it should have been a victory, that sort of thing. But the critical game against LA, they're calling it the comeback game. The fans are they're marketing it that way. It would have to be a heck of a comeback, and especially even for this team because of all these factors, all this adversity that they're going to be facing, like you said. But looking a little bit at the MLS situation too, we'll start by congratulating Apple and all the investors for getting the full squad out there for Sunday Night Soccer. But it didn't go so well for the home team, and now they're out of first place. Obviously, it's early in the season, but you kind of hope that losing those 2 points doesn't hurt them in the long run. They did get the debut of Ecuadorian new sensation Alan Obando. The 18-year-old made his debut, almost scored, almost got the game-winning goal. He had one good chance there that was stopped, but kind of showed you at least
chance.
A brief
he had
moment.
One good chance.
Yeah.
Yes, he had one good chance, but he also missed an opportunity to pass to Messi. If you look at the replay, Messi was open, and he should have passed to Messi. And he didn't. He's 18 years old. He just joined the team. He's been practicing with them only for a few days. He needs to get in the rhythm with the team. He needs to get in the rhythm with Messi. Everyone needs to learn how to play with him.
That should be in the contract. Must pass to Messi if he's open.
Must pass to if Messi is open, you just defer to him always.
Only half kidding.
No, not even kidding at all. If Messi's open in front of the goal and you're an 18-year-old who's playing in his first game, you pass to Messi. Really, that would have been the smarter decision. But, obviously is an ambitious kid and chose not to pass. But in the future, I think he might pass. And to Messi's credit, he did not, I think El Pistolero would have. I think El Pistolero would have been pretty demonstrative if he was open and did not get the goal. Right. Higuain, absolutely. Higuain would have thrown a fit on the field if he was open and an 18-year-old did not pass him the ball. Messi is much more reserved. And, he had a look of like, ooh, that was a missed chance.
We got to work on that kid.
It didn't make him feel bad, but you could see in his face like that was a chance that I could have had. But that said, listen, Messi took some shots that went over the crossbar. Let's just say it. I mean, he's amazing, but he did not finish all of his chances either. So it was really not a good game against Toronto. They're going to need to do much better against LA.
Yeah, and then after that,
Chicago Fire
Miami's
on Sunday.
Next MLS match will be at Chicago on Sunday, right? But you got to think, if they're going to go all out, and they have gone all out already to somehow advance in this Champions Cup, are we looking at a skeleton crew at Chicago with barely any of the big four, or if any at all, playing in that game, just because they're going to just throw all of this into the LAFC game?
Yeah, well, that's going to depend on what happens. That's going to depend if they're still in the tournament.
Right.
If they're eliminated from the tournament, then none of that matters. So we can't
but on the
speculate
back end,
until we see if they're playing.
I'm saying even rest wise on the back end, maybe, because if they, what if this game, what if we get, like we were talking about, what if we get extra time? What if we get PKs, all of that? And it's just a marathon game. On the back end, do some of these guys, Messi included, how do they bounce back from this little stretch? And do they go on this road trip or not? I don't know. I'm just saying it'll be interesting to see how they approach, on the flip side, a game that becomes maybe a teeny bit more important because of the fact that they didn't grab the 3 points they should have against Toronto, but we'll see.
Yeah, the Chicago fans would not be happy because 60,000 people in his first year bought tickets and didn't see him. And,
is that one of the stops? Uh-oh.
Yes. Chicago fans were not happy with that. So that's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting. Yes.
Okay. Well, speaking of fans and tickets, Michelle, what's the latest on Miami Freedom Park season tickets for 2026?
Yes. I went, my husband happens to be a season ticket holder, so I decided to piggyback on the visit. They're inviting all of the season ticket holders are being invited to go to a place that they're calling the Miami Freedom Park Experience. And they actually have rented out a space in a building in Wynwood. You would never know. You're driving through Wynwood, and all of a sudden it's a nondescript office building. But on the 5th floor, I think it's the 5th floor, the 4th floor, it is a swank, really nice, chic experience. They've basically set up an Miami Freedom Park museum 3D interactive experience for season ticket holders to show them what is the stadium going to look like and feel like as they try to sell these season ticket packages. So instead of just getting a flyer in the mail or a phone call or an email that says, oh, would you like to renew your season tickets for our new stadium and pay a whole bunch of money more, or, not a whole bunch, but a little more. Here's what you're going to get. We are going to show you exactly what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. And it's really a smart decision on the part of the club, because people don't know what is the stadium going to look like or what's going to feel like. So what you do is you go in this building, and first in the lobby, they have a museum, like a little museum of the 5 years of MLS, of Inter Miami history. And it shows, the very first team with Pizarro and Robbie Robinson lined up. It has like a little historical museum of the key moments of the club. The League's Cup is on display. The trophy is there. Messi's cleats, signed cleats on display. They have a signed jersey of the first team that ever played in a game, signed by all the players. And then there's another jersey with the League's Cup champion team with everybody's signature. So it's like a little memorabilia museum, which is really kind of cool. And then you go into a room, a little theater, and you sit in these seats, and there's a hype video. So they play this hype video that gets you all hyped about all the great moments that they've had in the 5 years, even though, all they've won so far is the League's Cup and the Supporters Shield. But wow, they make that look really, really exciting when you watch the hype video. You're like ready to open your checkbook or pull out your credit card. And then you go and you sit in a little sort of a living room setting, and they have like 8 of them set up. So all the different people come in, and you have a representative, your sales representative that you've been assigned, sits with you in this little living room area with couches, and you watch on a screen what your seat will actually look like. So if you are in section 114, row 12, seat 6, they can show you what is your view going to look like from that exact seat. Here's what's going to look like. And then you look at it and say, oh, I think I want to be a little closer, or I want to be a little higher up to see more of the, the way the plays develop. I want to be a little more to the left. I want to be a little more to the right. You actually get to feel and see what your seat is going to look like. So anyway, they're doing this to try to get people to buy season tickets. Right now, it's only the premium season ticket holders that are the first wave of these invitations were for the premium ticket buyers who have seats in the West Club and the loge seats, the suites and stuff like that. Those are the ones that got the first wave of invitations. Second wave of invitations is going to be for the regular reserved seats, people who have season tickets, but they're not in one of the clubs. And then it's going to be open up to the public in early summer. In June and July, anyone from the public will be able to go in and do the Miami Freedom Park experience and see if they want to buy tickets. So it's going to be very nice. I have to say, it's going to be a lot nicer than Chase Stadium. And Chase Stadium is what it is for a temporary stadium. They've done a lovely job. They really have. But this is going to be a real stadium with fancy skyboxes, with fancy clubs, with a glass enclosed tunnel club where the fans who are in the tunnel club, which is glass, will be able to see the team come in from the locker room onto the field through the glass. They'll be able to wave to their players and stuff. So there's going to be a lot of things, 4,500 parking spaces on site. And also one thing is that they're going to have and I know this is starting to sound like an ad. I don't mean it to be that way. I'm just telling you what it's going to have. But they are going to have a pedestrian walkway from the airport transportation station where you'll be able to take Metro Rail or Tri-Rail to the stadium, to a transportation hub, and then that's adjacent to the airport, and then there will be a pedestrian walkway that goes over a bridge into the stadium. So they are hoping that a lot of people will take public transportation to the stadium, which is something that is not happening very much with this stadium.
Yeah, that's the thing. Not to get too into the weeds because we're going to run too long, but that's one thing that people, I guess, from afar, are kind of wondering about this new stadium is, the ability to avoid massive backlog of traffic, car traffic in particular, of getting in and out of that place. Considering you're so close to the airport and so on. So that's good to hear. They're at least exploring some of that.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, they're doing that, and they're also building 2 miles of roadway within the perimeter of the park. So people will, in theory, we'll see if it really happens. In theory, people will get off Douglas Road and get off Lejeune Road and then go into, a snaking roadway of 2 miles within the park to try to make sure that they keep the roadways clear. That is in theory. We will see what actually happens next year.
Well, yep. And if you've driven past that way, you see the skeleton of the stadium starting to form. Exciting times as we get closer and closer to 2026. But speaking of that year and what lies ahead, let's end the show on one segment we want to bring up. Michelle, in the past, they were linked to Neymar in recent months. Now, Kevin De Bruyne, the Belgian superstar. We've seen him in the World Cup, how good he is. Is this more just teasing, or is this does this look like it's starting?
Well, I think the reason that this came up, of course, Miami's always linked. It seems like Inter Miami's linked to every player who's going to become a free agent. I want to go, people say, oh, he's going to come play with Messi. This guy's going to come play with Messi. Everybody loves Miami. They all want to come to Miami, have a waterfront condo, and play with Messi. But Kevin De Bruyne from Manchester City, a huge star, he is going to be a free agent this summer. And I think the reason that this big rumor has really started gaining some steam is that Inter Miami owns his discovery rights. This is another strange MLS rule within their very complex system, which is they can own rights to specific players, discovery rights, meaning that if another team signs him, they have to pay Inter Miami a fee in order to be it, because Miami has first dibs, basically. Yes, it's crazy. It doesn't happen in any other sport, in any other league, really. So they have discovery rights, which means basically, hey, we may be interested in him, but even if we're not, if some other team wants him and wants to negotiate with him, they need to pay a fee to Inter Miami. So, what I have heard from my inside sources is that, of course, he's an amazing player that any team would love to have. His salary is probably going to be out of the range of what Miami could pay. Right now, Miami already has 3 designated players. They have a full roster. They already have the most expensive roster in Major League Soccer. It would be very, very difficult for them to sign him unless he takes a massive, massive, massive pay cut. If he wants to get paid anything like what is being paid, it would be very difficult for Miami to pull it off. But Miami could still get some money from it if somebody else in MLS signs him.
Again, I go back to, yes, it would be great to add another monster player this coming season to make this push to try and win MLS Cup. But for the long-term longevity of this franchise, getting someone like that to come in when Messi finally hangs it up, to me, is even bigger than that. And a guy like him, he's 33 right now. He's still got some good years in him, you would think. Potentially, he turns 34 in late June, I just looked up. So we'll see. It'll be interesting if they can, whether it's this summer or soon. That whole dibs, like mark your territory clause that you can have at MLS is funny to me. I always thought the NBA had all these weird rules and
no one has weirder rules.
MLS
no
takes
one has
the cake.
weirder rules than MLS has GAM and TAM and discovery rights and re-entry rights. If someone leaves the league to Europe and then they come back, there's a whole different. Everyone has a different designation. Everyone has a different category. It's really very complicated.
Here I thought it was complicated with the NBA with bird rights and a tax apron and and me joking about bibs and what else are we going to use to describe rules and clauses and whatnot. And here's the MLS with like 15 more of these.
We need to have an MBA. You need to have a master's degree in business administration to understand sports these days. It's gotten a little too complicated.
Yeah, or be Barry Jackson, who apparently understands all of it more than we all do. So, hi, Barry. So to Barry Jackson, our co-worker and teammate and friend at the Miami Herald for a long time. But anyway, we will be back next week to recap. Did Inter Miami survive against LAFC? Are they still alive in the Champions Cup, or is that it for that part of it? And then it's just MLS for a little while until the next tournament comes up. Michelle and I will be back next week to go over that and much more. Remember to catch all her work and all her coverage of these next few games and the rest of the season, of course, at MiamiHerald.com. Catch this show on YouTube. We appreciate you for watching, as always, and listening if you're doing it on Spotify or any of the iTunes or any of the podcatchers that you listen to. Apple, of course. Let's not forget Apple, the one that pays MLS bills. The Manzana doesn't pay our bills, but it pays Messi, part of Messi's contract. But anyway, all right, we will see everybody, and hopefully you'll hear from us as always next week on Inside Inter Miami. Until then, take care and enjoy the games.